The event here is to remember those who sacrificed their lives for military service. And I am so proud to be a part of this, so proud to have all these people here for representing various generations through wars that have gone on throughout our history. And these people served, but we're here to remember the people who didn't come back from those wars, who gave their lives. And I appreciate being a part of it today.
It's Memorial Day in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the most patriotic city in America. Today we are here at the National Cemetery to honor the men and women who gave and paid the ultimate sacrifice. Memorial Day is dedicated to the men and women who passed away on active duty in their service. And this is so important. We must always remember and honor Memorial Day because I've said every day should be Veterans Day, but this day is dedicated for those men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice. They gave their lives fighting for our great republic. We can never forget that. We must always honor that, and I think we do that better right here in the great state of Tennessee than anywhere else in this nation.
It is my honor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Captain Kevin West.
Probably shouldn't mess with the microphone, since we seem to have some wind noise here. Thank you, Master Chief Bellamy, and thank you, Chattanooga Area Veterans Council, for the wonderful opportunity to share this day with you, with family members of fallen warriors, and with our entire community. It's actually a pretty interesting perspective from up here in front. It was 30 years or so ago, I used to cover these events as a radio beat reporter for WGOW. I stand in the back, and I recorded the speech, and then I would race back to the radio station to pull the clips and air the newscasts throughout the afternoon and the next morning. And now I'm the guy who has to deliver something for the reporters here today to cut up and use in their newscast tonight. Fortunately, the congressman is here. As a radio reporter, I always had a plan B in case what I was originally going after didn't pan out. So I feel pretty good that the congressman is a plan B. Of course, there's so much going on in Washington right now that may make you a plan A. Raise the microphone. That works. It all started when you opened the microphone, Congressman. Yes. Oh, the congressman and I have known each other for a long time, so I say things like that. A lot longer than either of us have been a plan A or a plan B. Long before it was Captain West and Congressman Fleischman, it was Kevin and Chuck. There was a radio guy teaching a lawyer how to do a radio show. We were just reminiscing about that before the ceremony today. Chuck Fleischman on the law. And I can't help but notice you have not come back to me for any more advice or training. I guess that tells me what you thought of the training in the first place. Joking aside, the congressman knows this, and so do I, and so do you. That neither he, nor I, nor any of the esteemed group of veterans that we have here today are the Plan A. We are here to honor the memory of those who cannot be here. Those who died while serving in the U.S. military. Few communities celebrate Armed Forces Day the way we do in Chattanooga. For 73 years running, we've had an Armed Forces Day parade to honor those who are currently serving in our military. Just had the latest one a little over 3 weeks ago. The dates have changed over the years. It used to be the Friday right before Armed Forces Day, but then with school participation and nurse changing schedule, that participation got more difficult. And so several years ago, we moved it up a couple of weeks to allow for that. Last year, we even had to do it in the fall because of COVID. The date, though, really isn't as important as the fact that we continue to celebrate the men and women who serve in our United States military. For 25 years, that was my celebration. I was serving as an active member of the United States military, and I was proud of that. This is the first year since I retired in October that the Armed Forces Day event hasn't been about me and for me and my shipmates or my brothers in arms from other military branches. I am now a veteran. It's still a bit of an odd feeling being retired military. I know some of you have experienced that, gone through that. Just last year I was the old man Navy captain. And I really was. It wasn't just a slang expression that was synonymous with the title. Every time I'd have a department head meeting or with my staff, the XO or the chief I'd make a quip and they'd say, "How old are you, sir?" Usually I'd respond with, "You know how old your parents are? I'm older than that," and they probably wouldn't get the joke either. So I'm still getting used to being retired military, but there are lots of recognitions for us as retired military. From special parking spaces at Lowe's to military appreciations throughout the year at various sporting events, to military appreciations at Riverbend, which is coming up next weekend, to various sporting events, on and on and on. The list just goes on. It's recognition, though, my Vietnam brothers and sisters never got. So I hope we're making up for that now. Thank you to my Vietnam brothers and sisters for doing what you did, paving the way for me and future generations to accomplish what we have and what we will with the greatest military that the world has ever seen. Our senators in Washington next week will be taking up a bill called the PACT, which will provide VA health and disability to veterans who suffer toxic exposures during their deployments, like the burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, where I was. It looks like there may be an agreement on it now. I'm not going to make a prediction, but it looks like there may be. And that comes because of the support of every major veteran service organization. The Vietnam Veterans of America, the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, all of them. I am so proud of the work that our veteran service organizations do to honor our pact with veterans who may still suffer the effects of their wartime experience even after they're no longer in a combat zone. 3 years our veteran service organizations have been working on this. We're almost at the finish line. It isn't cheap, but it's the right thing to do. And it's nothing compared to what war cost the men and women we are here to honor today. Today is Memorial Day. There are lots of different stories about the origin of Memorial Day. As noted in your program, you take a look at that. But it was officially proclaimed back on May 5th, 1868. I'll let you read more about the origins of the day in your program. But what was then called Decoration Day came shortly after the Civil War took so many lives of this country. Born from a desire to honor our dead. As General John Logan, the national commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, put it, whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, hamlet, and churchyard in the land. Some of them were here in this place where we're holding this commemoration, in this ground at the time of the first event back in 1868. It had just been designated, this place, as a national cemetery the year before, but it actually opened in 1863 with the interment of casualties from the battles of Chickamauga and Chattanooga, including almost 1,800 unknowns. They are unknown to us. They were unknown because no one could identify them after the battles in which they fell. But they weren't unknown to their moms and dads, to their brothers and sisters. They had families just like you and I do. They had a life too, albeit much shorter than yours and mine. We say that and we know that, but it really wasn't driven home to me emotionally until my XO, Commander Frank Pasquale, and I were driving through France about 20 years ago. I was not his CO then, I was a JG, or Lieutenant Junior grade, which for other services who have the weird ranks, I mean, we have the weird ranks. Y'all have the weird ranks. That's equivalent to a first lieutenant, that's an O2. So I was driving the XO from Heidelberg, where we had been doing some combined joint training with several different nations, to Paris, where we had our next assignment. Public affairs officers do know how to get the good assignments. Or as we like to say in military speak, we know how to maximize the mission. So we're driving the A4. We're a little over halfway there, but we'd started later than we intended, and we're getting hungry. So we stop in Verdun. The same Verdun of World War I fame. The battles during the winter of 1915 and 16. I knew it from a loose history perspective, but I never thought about being there. Never entered my mind. It's a small town, maybe 15,000 people then, 18,000 probably today, maybe anyway. But we were hungry, we were thirsty, and we needed a break from the ride, which would get much worse once we got to Paris. In the dark, trust me on that, first time in Paris, it's dark, there's no such thing as a GPS back then. I thought XL was going to kick me out of the vehicle and leave me standing someplace on the side of the road. As it was, he just made me switch places. So he drove and I navigated, which was not much better, as you soon discovered. But Verdun is not Paris. It's a small town. Very easy to navigate, very easy to find some place to eat, which we did. Being so small, though, there were very few English speakers in the town. And neither one of us spoke French at all, so we had quite the time communicating with the young woman who was serving us where we stopped. I have no idea what she said about us to other people working there, but she did laugh a lot, and so did they, and XO and I were having the grandest of times. But XO knew the World War I history of the place where we were. He knew it very well, and he told me about an American military cemetery about 40 kilometers northwest of Verdun. And he was really insistent that we were going to make this side trip, this extra 40 kilometers up to the northwest of where we were, which is yet another reason we ended up driving to Paris in the dark. But he's the XO, so what are you going to do? That cemetery is the Meuse-Argonne Cemetery. 14,246 Americans are buried there, most of them losing their lives in the Meuse-Argonne offensive in late 1918, in the last 3 months of the Great War. The first thing that got me when we arrived that afternoon were rows and rows and rows of simple white crosses, symmetrical, much like I can look out and see right now, the symmetry. It's a beautiful thing. It really struck me. Stars of David too. And for whatever reason, XO and I were the only two people in the 130-acre cemetery there that afternoon, or at that time anyway, or maybe in that section that we chose to visit for no particular reason. It was quiet. I remember that very well. It was very quiet. The sun was shining on the crosses and the stars of David. XO moved away. He clearly wanted to be by himself, which gave me an opportunity to be by myself and to really look at those crosses. 19 years old, 19 years old, 23 years old, 20 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old. Then I started to look at the dates. November 6th, 1918. November 10th, 1918. November 11th, 1918. November 11th, 1918. November 11th. November 11th. November 11th, 1918 was the very last day of the Great War. The armistice took effect at 11 o'clock that morning, the 11th hour of the 11th month. It was signed almost 6 hours earlier north of Paris, and commanders across the Western Front were communicated with, were told of it via telegram and telegraph. But the fighting didn't stop over those 6 hours. General John Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, wasn't convinced the Germans would honor the terms of the armistice, and he wanted to be in the most advantageous position possible should the hostilities resume. It is a command decision that has been questioned over and over during the last 100+ years, since it resulted in another 10,944 casualties in those 6 hours, over 3,500 from the U.S., the last 23-year-old banker Henry Gunther from Baltimore, a private, being shot to death at 10:59, 1 minute before the armistice took effect. They knew the armistice had been signed. They knew the war was ending. In a matter of 2 or 3 hours by the time they got the word, they knew, but they still did their jobs. They carried out the orders of the officers appointed over them according to the oath they swore when they signed up. They did their duty. It's what we do as military people, but it costs people like Henry Gunther everything. People like 22-year-old Harley Thomas Cooper, a Chattanoogan who was killed in the Gilbert Islands in 1943, but whose remains weren't identified until 2019, and who was finally laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery just 2 months ago. People like Army Specialist Glenn Howell Kelly, who died in Vietnam in the winter of 1965. A Chattanoogan who was originally left off the Vietnam War on accident, didn't get added until 50 years later. We remember. Specialist Kelly is buried right here at the Chattanooga National Cemetery, section Double Bravo, site 123. Navy Logistics Specialist, second class Randall Smith, buried in section Double Bravo, lot 403 Bravo. Marine Staff Sergeant David Wyatt, section Double Bravo, lot 407 Alpha. They, along with Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Sergeant Carson Holmquist, and Lance Corporal Skip Wells, were killed in the 2015 attack on the Navy Operational Support Center at the River Park on Anacola Highway. And there are so many more, just from the Chattanooga community. You could give me a story of your own. You could probably give me several stories. And it's important that we remember those stories. Which is why it's important that we come together on this day to tell those stories. I don't know all the stories of the 59,282 men and women buried here at the Chattanooga National Cemetery, but they all have stories. If you have a chance before you leave here today, or you come back another time, take a walk through the cemetery. If you're able. I know not everyone is. It's a big place, and there are some hills, and it is hot. But if you can, do touch the stones. Look at the dates. Say the name. Then I want you to go out and celebrate this day. Celebrate it for what it is, and live the life that those we honor today didn't get to live in full measure. General George S. Patton said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God such men lived." I do. And I thank you for being here to celebrate their memory. Thank you.
bright with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean.